Jacob, what are your cows doing in the pool?
They're just thirsty, Evelyn. It's all right here.
This is outrageous. Get them out now. Oh my God, the kids, get back.
The first thing anyone noticed wasn't the cattle. It was the screaming. Stop them. Get those animals out of the pool, a woman shouted as families scrambled out of the water. Children clung to their parents while dozens of neighbors stared in disbelief. Standing on the pool deck, HOA President Evelyn Sterling pointed directly at a tall rancher wearing a faded denim shirt and cowboy hat. "You've lost your mind, Jacob," she yelled. "I'm calling the sheriff." Jacob Walker didn't move. He calmly unfolded an old property survey and held it up for everyone to see. "You'd better do that," he replied. "Because this pool is sitting on my land." The crowd fell silent. A sheriff's deputy stepped through the gate, looked from the survey to the pool, then back to Jacob. "What I found next," the deputy said quietly, "changes everything. If you enjoy stories where justice always wins, subscribe, and let's begin." 3 days earlier, Jacob Walker had spent more than 30 years working the same family ranch on the edge of Cedar Ridge, a quiet ranch-style community where old farmland had slowly been replaced by expensive homes. His wife, Emily, often joked that Jacob could recognize every fence post on the property better than most people recognize their own neighbors. Jacob wasn't interested in arguments. He believed that if you treated people fairly, they'd usually return the favor. Unfortunately, one person never did. HOA President Evelyn Sterling had transformed the neighborhood association into something that felt more like a private kingdom than a community. She loved appearances, demanded perfect lawns, and acted as though every homeowner answered directly to her. At first, Jacob ignored the warning letters. One claimed his tractor was visually offensive. Another complained that his cattle were damaging the neighborhood atmosphere. Jacob laughed them off. His ranch had existed decades before the HOA was ever created. Then something changed. On Monday morning, he found fresh survey stakes driven into the ground near the eastern pasture. Bright orange paint marked several trees that had never been measured before. Emily frowned. "Did you hire someone?" Jacob slowly shook his head. "No." He knelt beside one of the stakes. There was no county identification. No survey company logo. Just a handwritten code. Someone had placed them there during the night. But that wasn't the strangest part. Beyond the fence, construction crews were unloading concrete forms near the community recreation area. Jacob stared for several seconds. The equipment looked much closer to his property line than he remembered. A heavy feeling settled in his stomach. Had the property boundary always been there? Or had someone moved it? Before he could investigate, a white luxury SUV rolled into his driveway. Evelyn Sterling stepped out wearing her signature white blazer and carrying a thick folder. She smiled politely, but her eyes were cold. "Good morning, Jacob. What can I do for you?" "I'm here to let you know the HOA has approved an expansion of the community pool." Jacob folded his arms. "Congratulations. The project extends slightly toward your pasture." "Slightly. Nothing for you to worry about." Jacob looked toward the construction equipment again. "It becomes my concern if they're building on my property." Evelyn's smile disappeared. "Our legal documents clearly show that land belongs to the association. I'd like to see those documents. They're HOA records." "So? They're not your concern." She turned and walked back to her SUV without another word. Jacob watched her leave, but one question wouldn't leave his mind. If she was so confident, why wouldn't she simply show him the paperwork? That evening, Jacob unlocked a dusty filing cabinet in the old barn where his late father's land records had been stored for decades. Inside were faded maps, tax receipts, handwritten notes, and yellowed property surveys dating back nearly 50 years. Most were exactly what he expected. Until one folded document slipped from the bottom of the drawer. Across the top, stamped in blue county ink, were words he had never noticed before. Original boundary survey, recorded. Jacob carefully unfolded the map. His expression changed instantly. The official boundary line wasn't where today's fences stood. It ran directly beneath the neighborhood's brand new community pool construction site. Someone, somewhere, had changed the property line. But who? And more importantly, how long had they been hiding it? Jacob barely slept that night. The old boundary survey lay open on the kitchen table while Emily compared it with the county tax maps on her laptop. "The measurements don't match," she said quietly. "Not even close." Jacob traced the faded survey line with his finger. "If this is authentic, the pool isn't just close to my property." He looked up. "It's sitting on it." The next morning, Jacob drove straight to the county records office. After nearly an hour of searching through archived deeds, a clerk returned carrying a thick file. "You might want to look at this," she said. Inside were copies of every recorded survey for Jacob's ranch. One page immediately caught his attention. A revised boundary map had been filed just 5 years earlier, the same year construction on the HOA Recreation Center began. But something was wrong. The surveyor's signature looked uneven. The county seal appeared slightly blurred. The clerk frowned. "I've never seen a certified map printed like this." That single comment convinced Jacob this wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone had altered official records. Jacob contacted Michael Carter, a respected property rights attorney known for handling complex land disputes. Michael studied every document without saying a word. Finally, he leaned back. "Jacob, if these original surveys are genuine, this could become much bigger than a property disagreement." "How much bigger?" "If someone knowingly filed false boundary documents." He closed the folder. "There could be civil and criminal consequences." Jacob nodded. "I don't want revenge." "I know. I just want my family's land back." Michael smiled. "And that's exactly how we'll approach this." But before they could file anything, another surprise arrived. The following afternoon, Jacob found a bright orange notice taped to his mailbox. Final HOA violation. The association claimed he had trespassed onto HOA recreational property and interfered with construction. The notice demanded a $25,000 fine. Emily stared at the letter in disbelief. "They're accusing you of trespassing on land we've paid taxes on for 30 years. Jacob quietly folded the notice. "They're trying to scare us." But the intimidation didn't stop there. 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into the driveway less than an hour later. Officer Ryan Mitchell stepped out. "We received a report that you threatened construction workers." Jacob looked genuinely confused. "I haven't spoken to a single worker." Ryan listened carefully before asking, "Would you mind if I spoke with the crew?" "Please." Minutes later, the workers admitted no threats had ever been made. One even confessed the complaint came from HOA management, not the construction company. Ryan returned to Jacob. "I'm closing this report." Then he lowered his voice. "I think someone wants an official record against you." Jacob thanked him, but Officer Mitchell's warning lingered in his mind. If the HOA was willing to file a false police report, what would they do next? 2 days later, the county approved Michael Carter's request for an independent land survey. Surveyor Linda Perez arrived before sunrise with GPS equipment and a small crew. Almost immediately, she noticed something unusual. "The permanent survey marker should be here." She pointed toward the edge of the construction site. "It isn't." Instead, someone had installed a newer metal marker nearly 12 feet away. Linda's expression turned serious. "County survey monuments don't move on their own." She ordered her crew to search the surrounding area. Nearly an hour later, one technician called out. "I found something." Buried beneath fresh soil and landscaping rocks was the original county survey monument. It had been deliberately covered. Linda carefully brushed away the dirt and compared the GPS coordinates. Her face went pale. "Jacob, this confirms your original survey." She looked toward the nearly completed community pool. "The entire eastern section is inside your property." Jacob felt both relieved and stunned. Finally, he had proof. But proving ownership and winning against the HOA were 2 very different battles. That evening, Evelyn Sterling called an emergency HOA meeting. Dozens of homeowners packed the clubhouse. Standing at the front of the room, Evelyn spoke confidently. "Mr. Walker is attempting to seize community property using outdated paperwork." Several neighbors nodded. Then Jacob quietly stood. "I never asked for your pool." He placed Linda's preliminary survey on the table. "I only asked you not to build on my family's land." The room fell silent. Evelyn barely glanced at the document before pushing it aside. "That survey means nothing." Before Jacob could respond, a voice came from the back of the room. "It means more than you think." Everyone turned. Former HOA board member Samuel Carter slowly walked into the room holding an old storage box. "I've kept something hidden for years," he said. "And after what I've seen, I can't stay silent anymore." Every eye in the clubhouse locked onto the box in his hands. No one knew what was inside. But Evelyn Sterling suddenly lost the confident smile she'd worn all evening. The room was silent as Samuel Carter set the dusty storage box on the clubhouse table. Evelyn Sterling's face tightened. "Those are HOA records," she snapped. "You had no right to take them." Samuel met her stare. "I didn't take them. I kept copies because something never felt right." He lifted out a worn binder filled with meeting minutes, old surveys, and signed resolutions. One document immediately caught Michael Carter's attention. "Jacob," he whispered, "look at this." It was the original proposal for the community pool. According to the document, the board had been warned by a consulting surveyor that part of the planned site extended onto the Walker Ranch. Instead of changing the design, someone had crossed out the warning and attached a different survey. Michael compared the signatures. "They don't match." Samuel nodded. "They were replaced after the meeting." The homeowners looked toward Evelyn. For the first time, she had no explanation. The HOA still refused to back down. Within days, its attorneys filed a lawsuit claiming Jacob was trying to destroy community property and reduce home values. Social media exploded. Some residents supported Jacob. Others accused him of being a greedy rancher trying to take away the neighborhood pool. News vans appeared outside the subdivision. Reporters interviewed neighbors from both sides. The pressure became overwhelming. Emily squeezed Jacob's hand. "No matter what happens, we know the truth." Jacob smiled, but the stress was beginning to show. The legal bills kept growing. The court date was only a week away. Then came another setback. A key digital copy of the original survey disappeared from a county computer. For one terrifying day, it seemed as though the evidence had been erased. Michael remained calm. "They deleted a copy," he said. "They didn't erase history." The county archives still held the original paper records, and Linda Perez had already documented every GPS coordinate from the recovered survey monument. The truth was still intact. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors filled every seat. Reporters lined the back wall. Judge Margaret Ellis listened carefully as both sides presented their arguments. The HOA insisted the pool had been legally approved. Michael Carter stood and displayed the original deed, the recorded survey, GPS measurements, tax maps, and photographs of the buried county survey marker. Then Linda Perez testified. Evelyn resigned before the board could remove her. A criminal investigation into the forged records soon followed. The remaining board members apologized publicly and voted to rebuild trust with the community. Then came the question everyone kept asking Jacob. What are you going to do with the pool? Some expected him to demolish it. Others expected another lawsuit. Jacob surprised everyone. He laughed. "I'm a rancher. If something sits on ranch land..." He looked across the property where his cattle grazed peacefully. "It ought to serve the ranch." After securing all legal approvals and permanently closing the unsafe recreational facility, Jacob removed the expensive pool equipment, modified the concrete basin into a large livestock watering reservoir, and connected it to an approved agricultural water system. Within weeks, cattle calmly drank from the former HOA pool. Even neighbors who had once opposed him couldn't help smiling. One elderly resident chuckled. "I guess it's finally being used by the rightful owners." The story spread across local news, not because Jacob sought revenge, but because he chose practicality over bitterness. He never mocked the families who had used the pool. Instead, he invited the neighborhood to an open community picnic on another section of the ranch. Children fed calves. Neighbors talked. Old arguments faded. Standing beside Emily as the sun set, Jacob looked over the pasture. "I never wanted to win against my neighbors," he said quietly. "I just wanted the truth to matter." Emily smiled. And it did. As the breeze rolled across the fields, the former pool reflected the evening sky, not as a symbol of conflict, but as a reminder that honesty lasts longer than power. Moral lesson: power without integrity always fails. Evelyn resigned before the board could remove her. A criminal investigation into the forged records soon followed. The remaining board members apologized publicly and voted to rebuild trust with the community. Then came the question everyone kept asking Jacob. What are you going to do with the pool? Some expected him to demolish it. Others expected another lawsuit. Jacob surprised everyone. He laughed. I'm a rancher. If something sits on ranch land. He looked across the property where his cattle grazed peacefully. It ought to serve the ranch. After securing all legal approvals and permanently closing the unsafe recreational facility, Jacob removed the expensive pool equipment, modified the concrete basin into a large livestock watering reservoir, and connected it to an approved agricultural water system. Within weeks, cattle calmly drank from the former HOA pool. Even neighbors who had once opposed him couldn't help smiling. One elderly resident chuckled. I guess it's finally being used by the rightful owners. The story spread across local news, not because Jacob sought revenge, but because he chose practicality over bitterness. He never mocked the families who had used the pool. Instead, he invited the neighborhood to an open community picnic on another section of the ranch. Children fed calves. Neighbors talked. Old arguments faded. Standing beside Emily as the sun set, Jacob looked over the pasture. I never wanted to win against my neighbors, he said quietly. I just wanted the truth to matter. Emily smiled. And it did. As the breeze rolled across the fields, the former pool reflected the evening sky, not as a symbol of conflict, but as a reminder that honesty lasts longer than power. Moral lesson: power without integrity always fails. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment telling us what you would have done if an HOA had built on your land. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more original HOA stories where justice always finds a way.